Hi, I'm Whitney Espich, the CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and I hope you enjoy this digital production created for alumni and friends like you.
Hello, alumni, and welcome to today's program. Thanks for joining us for our program on resilience and mindset in challenging times, which is being brought to you today by the MIT Alumni Association and is sponsored in part by the MIT Federal Credit Union, MIT Professional Education, and MIT Sloan Executive Education. My name is Cathy Modica. I serve as the academic administrator for the MIT Department of Physics, Course 8, the Great Course 8, and I'll be serving as your moderator for today's program. I am just about to complete my second decade at MIT after I had a warm-up 10 years in higher ed at our little liberal arts neighbor down the street. My first MIT posting was in the Harvard-MIT Division of Health Sciences and Technology, where I oversaw graduate admissions and took care of student life. And since fall of 2009, I've been with the physics department, working with a staff of 5 people to oversee every aspect of the department's educational program and serving as de facto mom and listening ear for our 500 students. My particular interest is in student well-being, and so I was thrilled and intrigued to be asked to moderate your program today. And I'm thrilled to introduce to you a Course 8 alum, Eric Nehrlich. Eric, welcome.
Thanks, Cathy, for that introduction. Thank you so much.
Let me add just a few words about you and a couple of housekeeping things. Sorry, folks. The webinar is being broadcast live, and you can submit questions using the Q&A feature in your Zoom toolbar. If you're joining via YouTube, add your questions to the comments field, please. And we're going to hold questions until the end of the presentation. And now I'm pleased to actually give a real introduction to today's speaker, Eric Nehrlich. Eric graduated from MIT in 1994 with an undergraduate degree from Course 8. He is an executive coach and facilitator who has 20 years of tech industry experience. In his practice, Eric helps leaders increase their clarity around where to focus time and attention and build better mindsets and habits. His professional career also includes 6 years as chief of staff at Google, leading business strategy and operations for the search ads product team. Eric, a warm welcome. Welcome back to MIT, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Cathy. I really appreciate that and for the introduction. I also want to just thank each of you for joining me here today. I really appreciate you spending the time to talk about this topic in this challenging times. As Cathy said, I'm an executive coach, and what that means is I really try to help leaders be more effective. And the way I do that is help them get clarity on what's most important to them and to focus their time and attention on that. And to do that, I have a bunch of mindsets and frameworks that I share with them to help them be more effective. These are mindsets and frameworks that have worked for me throughout my life. And so I'm going to share them with you today. And so I'm just going to jump right in. I want you to just take a moment to reflect on how this crisis is affecting you. How are you feeling today? And if you'd like, you can share that in the Zoom chat. But if you don't, I'm just going to give you a couple seconds to think about it. If you're like me and many people I know, you feel pretty anxious. Yeah, the first couple of things coming up are like stressed, exhausting, overwhelmed, worried. People are really feeling very stressed out about this time. And yeah, so we're all feeling kind of a similar way. And that makes sense. I mean, those of us that are MIT alumni, the way we got to MIT is generally because we're future oriented. We have a plan. We say, this is how things are going to be, and this is how I'm going to get there. And how do you make a plan and move forward when you don't know what the world's going to be like? Normally, you can project ahead and say things are going to be like the way they are today. And that's not true. Obviously, things have changed dramatically in the last 3 months, and we don't know where we're going to be 3 months from now. And that's pretty stressful. So how do you make a plan in that situation? So for me personally, I have a relatively new coaching business. And when this all happened, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to make my coaching business work in this environment. And actually, you can go back and look, and like on LinkedIn and Twitter, the first couple of weeks of shelter in place, I was just desperately saying, anybody, please talk to me. I'm desperate for clients. That wasn't very productive, of course. And what I realized after a couple of weeks is I had to just accept, I couldn't just wait for things to go back to normal. I had to accept that this was the way things were and figure out what I could do now. What could I do differently to move things forward? And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. It's like, I'm going to talk about how to build capabilities that are going to be useful and valuable regardless of what happens. You don't have to predict the future if you're building skill sets and capabilities that are powerful today. And so the way I'm going to think about that is our goals for today are to really focus on what's in your control. What can you do? What is not going to make you feel helpless or stressed or overwhelmed? Learn how to build your resilience, the ability to respond well and adapt in times of stress and adversity. Because if you build your resilience, you're more able to handle challenging times. And challenging times always happen. There's always things you don't expect. And lastly, I'm going to help you find greater meaning in your daily activities. Because when we connect to our greater purpose and meaning, our suffering, our daily stress can seem a little more bearable. So I'm going to start by sharing the story of Annie Duke, who some of you may know. She was a world-class poker player, won the World Series of Poker a few times, and she wrote a book recently called Thinking in Bets, where she takes what she learned at the poker table and applies it to how to live our lives. In particular, my main takeaway from this book was about separating the results we get are a component of two things: the skill that we bring and luck. That applies at the poker table, but it applies in life as well. So what she says is like, there's no purpose in a poker story if the point is about something you had no control over, like bad luck. If you play a hand perfectly and your opponent needs only has to get one card to win, and they get that card on the last card, well, that sucks. That's bad luck. But you played the hand perfectly. You shouldn't have done anything differently. There's nothing to learn from that bad luck experience. So, so that's important to remember, is like, how do you separate the results you get between what you had control over, what you can improve, what you can do differently, how to improve your skill, versus just bad luck that you just need to let go of and move on. And the way I think about this is really focusing on what is in your control, which isn't much. It's your actions, your thoughts, your reactions, and your mindset. It doesn't seem like much, right? And I'll go even further and say it's not even your actions, it's your next action. That is actually the only thing you have control over. What are you going to do next? The reason I say that is anything that happened in the past already happened. You can't change it. You can complain about it. You can try to find somebody to blame for what happened. But the only thing that can change is what you do next. What did you learn from the experience that will change how you behave in future actions? And you also can't change the future. The future hasn't happened yet. You can come up with all sorts of scenarios and be anxious about them and say, what if it plays out like this? And what if it plays like this? And spend hours and days saying, what if? But the only way you change the future is by taking one action at a time. What you do next, and how what you do next builds towards the future that you desire. I mean, it's important. So, and this isn't wisdom I came up with on my own. This is timeless wisdom. It goes back at least to the Stoic philosophers of Rome, like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. It also shows up in many Buddhist traditions. There is only the now. There's only the next action. Let go of everything else because you don't have any control over it. So yeah, the stuff that's not in your control, so many things. I'll start with the second point here. What results you get, not entirely in your control. You can have bad luck, as Andy Duke said. You may have had a perfect plan for 2020, this is what I'm going to get done this year, and this is how I'm going to lay it out, and just go boom, 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 boom. I certainly had such a plan for my coaching business, and it was all thrown out the window by March. So, it's like, okay, that's not in my control. What am I going to do next? What is the next action I will take given the new reality we're living in? I can complain about it, I can whine about it, or I can do something. The other thing here is like what others will do, think, or feel. This is a little bit tricky because how we act does affect how others act. People are often responding to us. So if we change how we react, then that changes how other people act around us. So we have some control about what we do. But if somebody continues to act in a way, no matter what we try, we can have to accept that and move on. I've had situations where I had a manager or a leader that was not behaving in a way I thought was appropriate for a leader. And I would just, in the past, I would complain about it for weeks, if not months. And I would just complain about it. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't change the game. And this all changed for me at one point at a company where it was a small startup and I didn't get along with the CEO and he rejected all of my ideas, period. Didn't matter how good the idea was, he rejected it. And I even had the situation where I would suggest something, he'd say it was stupid. And then 2 weeks later, he would suggest it and talk about the brilliant idea he had. It was clear that nothing I said was going to get through to him. And I had to make a choice. Was I going to just complain about it? Or was I going to make sure, was I going to find a way to contribute to the company? So what did I do? I said, okay, he doesn't listen to me. Who does he listen to? And I found the people he listened to, the people he trusted. And I would sell them on my ideas. And they say, oh, that's a really good idea. And they would pitch it to him and he'd say, that's a great idea. And then we'd go and do it. So I made sure the ideas got through, even though it wasn't coming from me. Now, the story doesn't have a happy ending because the thing I didn't think about in that case was that I wasn't getting credit for those ideas. And so I eventually got let go because he thought I wasn't contributing in any way. So +1, -1, it was a learning experience. But I just wanted you to take away from the first part of this talk to focus on what's in your control. What are you going to do next? What is really important to you today? This lesson was really brought home to me by one of my early directors at Google. And he was super impressive, a guy named Sanjay. He was trusted by everybody up to and including the CEO and CFO at Google to provide wise counsel on difficult decisions. And that wasn't the impressive part. The impressive part was he went home every day at 6 p.m. and was done with work. He went to play with his band, spend time with his family, and just let go of work. And that was impressive because at the time, I was working 8 a.m. to midnight every day. Sometimes I would take a Saturday off. And I was burning out and I was barely keeping my head above water. I was having nowhere near the same impact despite working like twice as hard as him. And I asked him, like, how do you do it? How do you have that sort of impact without like spending all your time at work? And he said something that seemed very obvious, but he said, I come to work and I work on the most important thing first. And if I don't get to the second thing, that's okay. It wasn't as important. It's like, well, duh, of course, that's the way things should be. And yet, what was I doing at the time? I came into work, I spent a couple hours on email, responding to everybody that sent something to my inbox. I would go to meetings for 5, 6, 7 hours for anybody that put time on my calendar. I would get back to my desk, spend another couple hours on emails, responding to the emails that came back from that morning. And then it would be 6 p.m. and I hadn't started on the one thing I had to get done that day, the most important thing. And that's why I was there until midnight every night. What does Sanjay do? He didn't respond to emails. He didn't go to meetings that he didn't call or that weren't relevant to his main work stream. And there are consequences to that. He pissed a lot of people off. People that were trying to get time with him, people were trying to get a response from him via email. He pissed them off. But he said, those aren't the people I'm serving. The impact I want to have is for the leaders of Google, and the work I'm doing for them is more important than anything other people are asking of me. I'm going to choose where I spend my time and attention. I'm not going to let other people choose it for me. That's a really powerful insight. So hard to implement, so hard to realize, oh, but I have to respond to this email. I have to go to this meeting. I need to do this. My manager asked me. Yeah, other people are going to ask you for things, but you decide how you respond. And sometimes it's going to be a hard response. And you have to accept the consequences of saying no. So speaking of what's in your control, I want to now shift to talk a little bit about resilience. As I said before, the American Psychological Association defines resilience as adapting and responding well in times of stress and adversity. And the important thing to realize is that resilience is not a built-in thing. It's not hereditary. It's not something that you're just born with or not. It is a function of your experiences. It is something you can build and learn. I'm going to go into 4 ways of building resilience. They include training your body, training your mind, connecting to your community, and connecting to a greater purpose or meaning. But I want to take a second here to talk about the value of resilience. In particular, if you trust your resilience, if you trust your ability to recover from something not going your way, from something going poorly, you're more willing to take risks. And if you can take more risks, you're going to make more progress in life. I once had a mentor tell me, if you're not failing spectacularly at least once a year, you're not moving fast enough. And I thought he was crazy at the time. I'm like, I can't fail. If I fail, people will see that I'm not any good. I'm not going to let people say I'm not good, so I can't fail. So I'm only going to take things that are safe. He's like, that's the problem. If you only take things that you know you can succeed at, you're not pushing yourself. So only by learning to trust my resilience was I willing to take bigger chances. And those bigger chances have resulted in bigger results for me and some stumbles along the way. So to illustrate resilience, I want to take you through a practice here live, a way you can build resilience in a few short minutes. And what I'd like you to do right now is sit up straight in your chair. Get grounded, feel more stable. Put your feet flat on the floor. And as you do that and get comfortable, I want you to start taking longer, deeper breaths. 4 counts in and 4 counts out. In and out. And as you do that, I invite you to put a hand on your heart. And maybe you can start to feel your heartbeat, taking the oxygen from your breathing in and distributing it via your blood to all parts of your body. Your lungs and your heart pulling in the oxygen and distributing it to your body to fuel everything that you do. We don't normally pay attention to this. It just happens automatically, subconsciously. And yet, it's essential to everything that we do. And perhaps you can take a second to feel some gratitude and appreciation for your body working so hard on your behalf, of getting all this done without you even noticing. Take a moment to notice it and appreciate it. I'm going to ask you now I'm curious how you're feeling. How do you feel in this moment, especially compared to how you felt at the beginning of this talk, when many of you were feeling stressed, anxious, overwhelmed? Again, you can share via the chat box if you'd like. I personally feel more calm and relaxed after I take these kind of deep breaths, take this moment to feel gratitude and appreciation. And since this is an MIT alum group, well, I'll share a little bit of the science behind this. And I'll admit that I'm not a biologist, so I may get this wrong, but my understanding is that the autonomic nervous system has 2 modes. There's what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is essentially the survival system. So when we get stressed and we feel under threat, we kick into a fight or flight reflex. Our body gears up for action. It says, let's go. Okay, gotta either get ready to run or get ready to fight, and get very excited. And I start speaking very fast, and my breath gets very short because I have to power up with a lot of breath so I can react to whatever happens. And that is a really valuable reflex. You got to have that. But most of the situations we face are not life or death. If we get asked a question in an executive meeting, that's not a life or death situation. And we get into this fight or flight mode and the blinders come on and we focus solely on our own survival, we're not answering the question. We're not responding in the most effective manner. We're not looking at all the options. I had one client who would get so panicked, he would just spit something out, whatever first came to mind when he got asked a question in an executive meeting. And that wasn't serving him. If he would just take 5 seconds, take a couple deep breaths, he was like, oh, here's a better answer. And so this is a skill we can use to get back to what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the more calm, collected, wide open, curious system. Some people call it the rest and digest system, where you absorb everything that's happened and come to greater conclusions, wider possibilities. And the key here is that the deeper breaths are a signal to your body to get out of fight or flight mode. Because if a saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, you're not taking deep, calm breaths. So you can reverse it and get out of fight or flight mode by consciously taking these long, slow, deep breaths. The positive emotions of gratitude and appreciation are critical as well. Because when you feel these positive emotions, you remind yourself of what you do have, the things you overlook. We often focus on what we don't have, which I call a scarcity mindset. I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have the title, I don't have the money I want, blah, blah, blah. We forget what we do have. Most of us still have a job. Most of us still have a roof over our heads. Even if we have none of that, we still have our body. We still are working, heart and lungs working to keep us alive and give us a chance to try something different. So I'm going to move on to the ways you can build this resilience. I'm going to start with training the body. And a lot of us at MIT tend to overlook the body. We really focus on our brains. In fact, there's a theme for decades where people want to upload their brain into the cloud or just get out of the meat sack that we call it, our body that is the thing housing our brain. But I hope the exercise we just did helped you realize that our mind and our body are intricately interconnected. They're integrated. Our mind is affected by our body. And in fact, the body is the foundation of everything we do. The brain doesn't work unless our heart and lungs are pumping blood and oxygen to it. And what I tell people is that if you had one tool on which your entire work depended, you would take care of that tool. You would make sure it was maintained. You would make sure to invest in upgrading and maintaining it regularly, whether it's a developer tool if you're a software developer or a lab tool, whatever. And yet our body is that one tool for us. It is the thing through which we get everything done. And we don't necessarily take good care of it. So what does maintenance look like? I mean, you know, it's developing healthy habits. It's sleeping 7+ hours a night. It's exercising and getting moving for at least 15 to 30 minutes several times a week. It's eating healthy so that you have the proper fuel to move forward. And I'll go on to say that it's about matching your commitments to your capacity. What do I mean by capacity? It's just the ability to get stuff done. You can call it time, you can measure it by attention, you can measure it by focus, but there's a finite amount of capacity that we have to get things done. And when we exceed that, we're running a debt. And eventually that debt has to be paid off. You can have it in less extreme or more extreme ways. For me, I did not learn from my conversation with Sanjay, and I kept on working at that breakneck pace for another year. And I said, I just have to make it through to Christmas. I'm just going to keep pushing hard. And I got to Christmas, and I woke up with 103-degree fever and basically didn't get out of bed for a week. I was that worn out. I was that depleted. I'd used up all my reserves. And that just wasn't very effective. And I had to make the choice, is this something I want to keep doing? And I answered for myself, the answer was no. I went back in on January and told my manager, I'm not doing that anymore. And she said, that's going to have consequences. And I said, I understand. So she took away half my team and my performance rating was slashed. And I don't regret it for an instant. I failed in the sense I didn't get everything done, but I succeeded because I chose where I wanted to spend my time and attention. I realized I did have that control to say, this is where I'm going to want to make a difference. Ironically, that helped convince me to go find a new team. And that's where I became the chief of staff for the Search Ads product team, where I had more impact than I could ever have imagined in my previous job, helping to grow the business to over $100 billion a year. So my point here is it's important to remember to manage your capacity and manage your commitments within that capacity. I like the way somebody put it, I can't remember who, but they said saying no is saying no to just one thing. Saying yes is saying no to every other possible thing you could do with that time. So be careful with your yeses. One last thing I'll say here is about building a reserve. Every financial expert out there would tell you, first thing you could do if you're spending less than you earn is to build up your cash reserves. So you can afford to have 3 to 6 months of costs in the bank if something goes wrong. Because again, you don't control the world. Things can go wrong. You can have bad luck. So having a reserve to carry you over during those times is essential. And the same is true of our capacity, of our body. If you're committed always to 100% of your time, then if something goes wrong, if something goes the way you don't expect it to, you have nothing left to give without going into debt. You're now going 120%, 150%, trying to deal with the unexpected thing. I highly recommend committing 80 to 90% of your time instead, leaving a 10 to 20% buffer. The nice thing about that is if something doesn't go wrong, if it doesn't get used by bad luck, you can invest that back in yourself. Invest it in things like sleep, exercise, in eating healthily, in building your capacity so that you can take on more. And as you build your capacity, then that 80 to 90% will grow. In fact, it'll grow to be more than the 100% you were started with. So I'm just going to leave that there. I think you get the idea. Another way to build resilience is about training the mind. And we've already talked a lot about this today. It's about really focusing on what you control and letting go of the things you don't, letting go of bad luck. It's also about mindfulness, which can be an overused term, but I think of it as turning off the autopilot. We spend so much of our days and lives just going through our routine, doing things because it's the way we've always done them. Get in our commute, go to our job. It even extends to how we react to things. Oh, well, they challenge me. This is how I react. I come back at them. This is just the way I am. But is it? Can you change it? I say the answer is yes. You have more control over that than you think. In fact, this coronavirus crisis is a chance to really examine consciously everything in your life. Your routine is already disrupted. Everything is already thrown in the air anyway. So as you go back to normal, whatever normal ends up being, be very thoughtful, be very conscious of what you want to include, what is contributing towards the future you want, and keep that. And when things go wrong, think about what can I learn? How do I grow from this? What will I do next in response? So that's training the body and mind. And one person that does this really well is LeBron James. For those that don't know, LeBron James has been the best basketball player in the world for most of the last 15 years. And part of that is that he won the genetic lottery, but that's not all. He invests in himself to an unprecedented extent. I read that he spends $1.5 million a year on maintaining and strengthening his body. And it shows up in the results. He's rarely injured, despite taking on a superhuman load every year. And he continues to be one of the most effective players in the NBA, even at, I think he's like 35 years old now, which is insane. Because he's investing in himself. He's committed to being the best that he can be. And it's not just his body. He trains his mind as well. He's actually a spokesman for the mindfulness app Calm, because he understands how important it is to focus your time and attention on what matters. You can see that in the quotes he has here. There's that moment every morning when you look in the mirror. Are you committed or are you not? What is important to you? What are you committing to get done today that's going to get you towards where you want to go? He understands that. And that's why I wanted to include him here as an example of how important training your body and mind can be. So the other ways to build resilience are about connecting to something greater than yourself. In particular, connecting to other people. Part of this is just remembering you're not alone. That's why I asked you to share in the chat box how people were feeling, so you could see that you're not alone. Other people are feeling the way you do. And there's something about that, especially in a time of social distancing, to remind yourself, I am not alone. Other people are feeling what I'm feeling. It's also a matter of getting support from your network. There's a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that makes sense, because if I'm falling behind, if I need some help, you can help me. And on the days when you're feeling a little weak, I can help you. Together we get further than each of us would alone. And this was brought home to me in a very, very real way 4 years ago, when I was a big bike rider at the time, and I was trying to get faster and faster. So I was chasing some people that were faster than me. And we were going down a windy road here in the Bay Area where I live. And I was going around 30 miles an hour when I whipped around a corner and hit a bump that I didn't expect. I went off the road, slammed my head into the side of the road. I actually don't remember this. I just woke up on the side of the road with the ambulance there. I was taken to the ICU. I had a severe concussion, 2 brain bleeds, and 2 broken vertebrae. I literally broke my neck. Fortunately, I did not need surgery and was able to recover fully with a neck brace. But for those first several weeks after the crash, I was pretty helpless. I could get almost nothing done. And that's when my community came together to support me. My mom came and stayed with me for a week, preparing food, helping me get through the day. And after she had to leave, I had friends visiting every single day, bringing me food, supporting me, reminding me I wasn't alone. And that meant everything to me. It really showed me how important it was to have people I could lean on when I needed help. I'd always been so focused on being self-reliant that I didn't want to lean on others. I wanted to help them, but I didn't want them to help me. But it goes 2 ways. And their support meant everything in that moment. Community can also matter by having a place where you can have accountability. Alcoholics Anonymous knows this very well. It's designed to have you stand up in front of other people and say, this is what I commit to. And it gives you a sponsor, somebody that's been through what you've been to, so they know how hard it is. And they share that you're not alone. This is not unique to you. And they hold you to that higher standard, hold you to the commitments that you make out loud. Your community can help you be better. They can help you reach your goals, even when you might give up when you're on your own. And that helps build your resilience. Lastly, another way to connect to something greater than yourself is connect to purpose and meaning. There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by a guy named Viktor Frankl, who was a psychotherapist in Vienna before World War II. He was also Jewish. And he was captured and taken to the concentration camps. And he survived. And his book is an account of the horrible experiences that he had, but also the hopefulness he managed to maintain throughout it. Because he noticed that the people who lived were often people that lived for something greater than themselves. I mean, these were brutal conditions. People were starving. The guards didn't care whether you lived or died. And fighting only for yourself, then people sometimes just gave up. And when they gave up, they died. But he fought. He fought to live, to try to be with his wife again. And for the sake of his work, he'd been about to publish a book before he got captured. And that book was his life's work, his life's contribution to his field that he thought would make a difference to other people. And those things helped keep him fighting every single day to move forward. So he says, there's nothing in the world that would so effectively help one to survive even the worst conditions as the knowledge that there is meaning in one's life. He also says, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. Even in these brutal, brutal conditions where he had no freedom over his own actions, everything he did was controlled by the guards. he still found the spiritual freedom to interpret of his thoughts, of deciding what his suffering meant. What did it mean to suffer each day? And once he gave that suffering meaning, he was able to continue forward and keep fighting. So how do you find your own purpose and meaning? We're not suffering anywhere near what Viktor Frankl did, but we can each find our personal way to connect to meaning and purpose. But it's tough because everybody has a different way of looking at it. I like the way that Nilofer Merchant puts it in her book, The Power of Loneliness. She says, from the spot where only you stand, you offer a distinct point of view, novel insights, and even groundbreaking ideas. You have a unique background. You have a unique perspective. Your background and skills and combination is unlike any other person. But the purpose and meaning comes when you figure out how you want to use that unique perspective, your unique skill set. Where will you contribute to make things better? And so she says, when your life has meaning, it is because you have defined that meaning. You've chosen where you're going to contribute your power. So what is that? How would you find that for yourself? Well, I invite you to just think back on a project or experience that was a peak experience of your life. Something you were energized by, excited by, something you're proud to talk about to this very day, where you're like, this was awesome. This was such a great experience. Just think about it for a second and really think about like what made it great. And again, feel free to share this in the chat box. I'd love to hear some of what you think about. But here are some common answers. Could be the team, that you love the team you're with. Some people are motivated by money, but money is a way of getting safety, of control. Some really just want to master a skill. Some feel motivated by the work itself, purpose, autonomy, impact. There's lots of ways we can find our purpose and meaning. And what I'm trying to bring here is that sometimes it's not about the actual activity. You can find purpose and meaning regardless of your job. And I like to illustrate this by the story of the three stonecutters, which you may know. And the story is there's a medieval traveler walking down the road, and he sees three guys cutting stone by the side of the road. And he asks them what they're doing. The first one says, I'm cutting stone because it's my job. This is how I get paid to support my family. The second one says, cutting stone because this is my art. This is how I create beauty in the world. And the third one says, I'm building a cathedral for the glory of God. Same activity, three different meaning assigned to the activity. I'll share my own story of finding my own purpose and meaning. And so I guess I didn't mention this in the intro, but I've had a very long and winding career. As Cathy said, I started off getting a degree in physics at MIT. I went on to grad school at Stanford in physics, but then realized physics wasn't doing it for me, and I dropped out. I became a software developer for a while, worked at a biotech company for a while, then became a product manager at a web startup, got interested in the business side of things, became a financial analyst, and then moved on to running business strategy and operations for the search ads product team at Google. And then last year, I left Google to become an executive coach. So when you look at that from the outside, you're like, well, there's no through line there. Physics, software, biotech, business, coaching, there's nothing. It's all kind of random. And I actually thought that. It was just kind of random. But a couple of years ago, somebody asked me, what did you like about being a software engineer? You don't really seem like a developer. You're not excited about the code. And I thought about it, and I was like, what I loved about being a software engineer was that moment when I wrote a new feature and delivered it to the customer. And they tried it out. They looked back at me and said, this is great. I could never do this before. That's what energized me, helping people do something new. And then I realized that's what I love about coaching. It's that moment of helping people discover new capabilities in themselves, helping them do something new. And I realized that in all of my jobs, whether as a business strategist or even as a physics grad student, I found ways to help people discover something new. That's where I found my personal meaning, because that's what energizes me. So pay attention to what energizes you to connect with your meaning. And because my meaning is about helping people discover new capabilities and try something new, I want you to take something away from this talk. To put this talk into action, I want you to really be conscious of where you're putting, what you're doing next. How are you contributing to what you want to build? So when you start each day, take a moment to feel that gratitude and appreciation for what is in your life. Get into that abundance mindset. And then set your intention for the day. What do you want to get done? How will you contribute today? And when you notice yourself getting distracted or anxious, procrastinating, recenter yourself with a few deep breaths. Do the exercise we did together and return to your intention. And as you have some time, experiment with ways to build resilience, to build your capacity, to know that you can handle stressful and adverse and challenging times. Whatever it is, training your body, mind, connecting to your community or your purpose, try them all out and keep what works. So I like to sum up this talk with the great philosopher, Dolly Parton, who said, find out who you are and do it on purpose. And that's what this talk is about. It's really connecting to what it makes you uniquely you, to your purpose and meaning, and then consciously put your time and attention into that area. Find a way to contribute. So that's all of my prepared material. If you'd like, you can reach me at the email address on the screen, eric@toomanitrees.com, to share what you're taking away and what you will try as your next step. But for now, I think I'm ready to spend the rest of our time taking questions.
Great. Eric, thank you so much for this presentation. One of the things I know that I'll take away from this is your very apt reminder to do the most important thing first. I really heard myself in the story about, spending 2 hours responding to people's email and getting behind that way. So thank you for that. So we've gotten something like a dozen different questions over the course of the time you've been presenting, and they fall into a few themes. And I want to start with this one because this is one that I almost wish I had asked myself. And that is how to express that you're feeling okay when other people are so troubled and distressed by our situation. In other words, how can it be okay to be okay right now?
It's a great question. Everybody starts conversations like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And I never know how to answer it right now, because it's like, I personally am doing okay. My family is healthy and safe. We have jobs. We have a roof over our head. But our society is not okay. And how do you balance those two things? So I often shorthand it by saying, like, I'm doing well, all things considered. But I think it's important to recognize that yeah, our society is going through a trauma right now. Tens of millions of people have lost their jobs. Tens of thousands of people have died. Many people are getting sick. We can't just wave that away and say that I'm fine. But I also want to remind people that taking care of yourself matters. You can't help others without taking care of yourself. We all know the airline safety talk that says, put on your own mask before helping others. And that's what I think that's the way I think about it, is by taking care of myself, I'm lowering the burden on other people. And I have the capacity to go on and help others manage their stress and adversity during these times. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we had a couple of questions about the idea of presence, of being present. And one of our participants asks how you can feel about scenario planning if the only thing we have is the present. I think it's a question about how is it okay to plan for the future while you're trying to be in the present moment?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you to whoever asked that. So it's a tricky balance because scenario planning is tremendously valuable. It's how we get a sense of what might happen. I think the difference becomes when we get attached to a particular scenario. We say, this is the way things should be. And when it doesn't turn out that way, we get disappointed, and we start to get distracted by trying to make the things turn out the way they should. Scenario planning is useful to think about what might happen, to prepare in the present for what might happen in the future. And so being present in this case means, yeah, go ahead, make the plans and do the scenario planning and think about what might happen. But then recognize what actually happens and respond to it, because you may not have anticipated what's going to happen. And if you spend your time trying to bend the world to what you want to happen, it's going to be a lot of work and you may be disappointed. So I think being present in this case, or the way I interpret it, is it's not an either or, it's a both and. Do the scenario planning, think about the future, but with the idea of using it to inform what you do next. If you're doing the planning for no other purpose than to kind of distract yourself, I see a lot of people who make all sorts of plans and procrastinate by making plans and never actually do anything. And that's when you're not being present.
So we also had a number of questions about dealing with our relationships with others in this period. And I'm going to tell you a series of questions. I'm going to leave it up to you as to which one to address first. One participant would like to know your thoughts on how to interact with very negatively focused coworkers, how not to get drawn into that negativity. Mm-hmm. Another is how to help colleagues and coworkers who are really not self-starters, who aren't good about controlling their own actions, who get trapped in their own mental images. How to help support them break through some of those patterns. Mm-hmm. And then thirdly and lastly for the moment is helping college kids. Certainly I know plenty of college kids in physics right now who have lost their summer opportunities and they're really at sea and they're really grieving. How to help them if you're a parent or otherwise responsible for college kids when you really can't make them do some of the kinds of things that you've described in this presentation?
Yeah, it's a big question. So dealing with negative coworkers, helping other people that aren't self-starters, and helping college students. I guess the way I think about all of these questions as a general framework is getting clear for yourself on what your boundaries are. And what I mean by that is any of these situations, you could put all of your energy into trying to change a negative coworker's attitude or to helping somebody become a self-starter or helping a college student, and they may not change. And the question is, how much energy are you willing to put in? Because you can't, in the end, they have to choose to change. You cannot change them for them. So to me, it's really a question of like, are they willing? You can say, this is what I see as a possibility for you. And here's my perspective. And here's what I'd love to see from you. But in the end, the other person has to choose what they want to do. And if they don't choose to do that, are you going to keep banging your head into that wall? Or are you going to move on to somebody else that is responding to what you're offering? So that sounds a little bit like giving up, but I feel like it's a delicate balance here, because you can pour endless amounts into other people and they're not going to, and some people won't change because there's just too much trauma or too much of their own experiences that they don't feel comfortable, safe to change, or they're not willing to hear it from you. So what I often try to do is offer people a way in, say like, here's what I offer. Here's what I can see as a possibility for you. And if they respond to that, great, let's work together. And if they don't, that's fine too. I don't let it become a reflection on me and affect my self-image if they don't choose to follow. If not follow, but if they don't choose to go the path I did. I try not to get attached to the results. I try to say, this is what I can offer, and you decide. And really respect their autonomy in that respect.
Thank you for that thoughtful response. We also have a number of questions from individuals about issues that they're dealing with in their own responses to the current situation. One participant asks, for instance, what's the best way to focus on what's good in your life? And when stress gets piled on, and for some of our participants, stress is piling on because extra work is piling on as coworkers are being furloughed or laid off. How to deal with the piling on of that kind of stress?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I mean, there's no easy answers here. When there's more work being piled on, it feels like you have to do it. Like the work has to get done, right? And yet this gets back to that question of boundaries. When do you say, like, this is more work than I can get done? This is more work than I have capacity for, especially when I'm feeling so much stress, perhaps from the situation at large. Maybe you have children at home that you're trying to take care of. Maybe you have a loved one that is sick, and saying, this is more than I can give at this time. And I don't know, that boundary is different for different people, how much they're willing to sacrifice themselves. But as somebody who used to sacrifice myself entirely to please others, I always said yes, because part of my self-image was, I can handle this. I can do it all. I'm going to keep saying yes and take on everything in the world because I can do it. And that's an attitude many of us at MIT have, because like we've been able to do it through high school, through college, through the first many years of our career. And for me, it was that I'd mentioned that burnout time when I just completely broke down. I said, wow, I can't do it. I can't do it all. There's literally too much for me to do. In that case, I told you, like, I had to make the choice, and say, I can't do this. And I accepted the consequences and said, yeah, that means I lose my performance rating. It means I lose my chance at a promotion. It means I lose half my team. So I can't tell, for each of us, that's going to be an intensely personal choice of where we draw that line of saying, this is more than I can handle right now. But I want to remind you that it is a choice. You are choosing to do the work. You're choosing how much you're taking on. And yeah, there's consequences to choosing the other way. There's consequences to saying no. But recognize that you do have a choice. You can say, yeah, I can't handle this. And that will be a blow to your ego. And the question is, are you willing to accept that consequence? And I think I answered both questions, but I can't remember now.
Yes. So here's a question from someone who might say that right now he's not in a position of having much choice. He mentions that he's actually lost his job recently and that he's embarrassed about that and would like some advice about how to ask for help when he can't open up about his situation to others.
Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. And I guess I would push back on that can't. I can't open up. Well, maybe you can't open it up to everybody, but is there one person you trust that you could open up to? And if there isn't, maybe you can do some work with a journal and at least get the thoughts out of your head and onto paper where you can kind of examine them a little more, where they're not part of what you're thinking, and you get out of the swirl of your thoughts by putting them on paper or in a document to look at them and see the pattern from the outside. In other words, if you put it into a journal, then you can look at it and treat yourself as a friend and say, like, if I was my friend now, how would I look at this? What advice would I give? And I guess the other thing I'd say is that I've talked to a bunch of people during this crisis who've either lost their jobs or I've given up on trying to find a new job because everything's in disarray. And they're like, well, how do I guess I can't do anything about finding a new job because nobody's hiring. And that's somewhat true. There's a lot of places that are not hiring. There are some places that are. But what I suggested to these people is to really focus on the parts of building for a job that you can do, even if you're not applying for a job. So setting yourself up for success in getting a job involves a few things. Involves really showing to the hiring manager how you're going to help them succeed. That's effectively what you have to do to get a job. So how do you develop the skills that they're looking for? You can do that now. Maybe how do you convince them? Well, referrals always help. So how can you reach out to people during this time? Talk to people that might know somebody who's hiring the positions that you're looking for or will be someday. These are things you can do today, even if nobody is hiring. You can work on your resume and see how you're telling the story that you're going to help the people that hire you to succeed. And none of these are guaranteed to work. I understand that. But these are the things you can do that you can take action on right now. And as you take action, you'll start to feel better because you're actually doing something instead of getting lost in a swirl of anxiety. Even if it's just like, maybe you can't talk to people about what happened, but you can say like, hey, I want to do an informational interview with you to learn more about your job. That you can do without saying anything about your situation. And by learning more and asking who else should I talk to, you can start building connections and referrals. So it's a really tough situation, but I suggest people come back to this idea of what can I actually do right now that'll set me up for success. And as you think through it and especially with applying for jobs, I really ask people to remember to take on the orientation of the hiring manager and saying, how will I help them succeed? And if you put everything into that lens, I think you're more likely to get the jobs that you want.
Okay, thank you. So I see we're coming close to the end of our time, and we've continued to get a lot of good questions as you've been answering questions. But I want to go back to a question that came in rather early in the program because it's a really important one, and I think the person who asked it is actually very brave for having asked it. It's the kind of thing we often think about, but we don't know how to ask. And the question is, how do I stop thinking about death and misery as a result of the pandemic?
Ooh, that's a really tough one.
You can see why I didn't want to lose that one.
Yeah. How do I stop thinking about death and misery? I'd love to understand more about where they're coming from and their own personal experiences, because I think that would play into this. And understanding why death and misery is something they're fixated on and focused on. Because there's always death and misery happening in the world. And so what is it about this that brings it to their attention in a different way than it was last year? Because a lot of people died last year too. Wasn't part of the pandemic, but they died for cancer or heart attacks or car accidents or whatever. So what is it about this that brings it home to them? And the answer is I guess my answer would be that last year, you thought about other things because there were other things in your life. You focused on other things that mattered more to you at that time. So what else can you focus on in your life? Is there some way you can contribute to care for others, to volunteer? There's something so powerful about getting our mind off ourselves and our own thoughts and out of our own head and finding ways to help other people, even in small ways, even in like finding an elderly neighbor and buying their groceries for them, or finding somebody else that's feeling down and having thoughts of death and misery and sharing with them how you're feeling. So I don't have an easy answer here. There's no one size fits all, but I guess my thought is to just notice this is happening and consciously direct your attention somewhere else, even if it's for a few seconds, and see if you can do that. And as you practice doing that, it'll get easier. And that's not to say you want to shut out the death and the misery, because that's running away from the problem as well. But how do you be aware of it without letting it paralyze you? How do you be aware of it without letting it paralyze you and keeping you from taking action to contribute?
Thank you so much. we've thrown a lot of tough questions at you, and there've been a wide range of types of questions, and I really appreciate the responses that you've given. I wish we had much more time because there were more questions we didn't have a chance to address. So I want to thank you very much for being with us today. The Alumni Association thanks you for taking part in this program and sharing your work with MIT alumni around the globe. And to all of you alumni viewers who tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that wherever you are trying to be as safe and as well as you can be. As a reminder, today's webinar is going to be on the Alumni Association YouTube channel under the Career Lunch and Learn playlist, and that'll be posted in about a week from today. If you have questions, you can send them to alumnicareers@mit.edu. Thank you all again.
I want to just jump in, Cathy, and say, if you do have questions that I didn't get to, feel free to email me, Eric@Too Many Trees. I will try to answer all of them. And I saw a question scroll by in the chat of why too many trees, and it's related to you can't see the forest for the trees. So when you get stuck in the forest, there's just too many trees to see the forest. And my goal as a coach is to help people zoom out, see the big picture, see the forest. So
great.
Thank you again for all of your time. Thank you for your moderation, Cathy.
My pleasure. Take care to all of you.
Thanks for joining us. And for more information on how to connect with the MIT Alumni Association, please visit our website.